Delivery man is humiliated by a millionaire who asks him to go up to the 10th floor to deliver his snack. Before the story begins, comment below which city you're watching the video from. We love getting to know our viewers. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more exciting stories. Enjoy the story and see you soon. Marcos wakes up early in his modest home in the city center. The soft morning light enters through the small windows, and the smell of fresh coffee fills the air. He is the only son of Helena and Jose, a couple who always did their best to give him a dignified life. Although they didn't have much, the happiness of the family was evident. However, in recent months, something had changed. The health of his parents was deteriorating alarmingly. Jose, his father, who had worked as a mechanic, faced a series of health complications that prevented him from continuing in the workshop. His mother, Helena, tried to keep the house afloat with small jobs, but her arthritis had worsened, making even the simplest tasks almost impossible. It was in this difficult scenario that the idea arose. "We need a solution," said Jose, his voice weak but firm. "Let's sell snacks. Maybe we can pay the bills while I recover." Helena agreed. With her talent for cooking and determination to never give up, she began preparing the first snacks. Marcos, at 12 years old with boundless energy, was determined to help. "I'll deliver the orders, Mum," he said, his eyes shining with a sense of responsibility that his family so badly needed. Marcos then grabbed his old bicycle and started pedaling through the city. At first, the deliveries were limited, 1 or 2 per day, but soon the small town became familiar with the new form of fast and affordable food. The locals began ordering snacks to their homes, praising the quality and homemade taste of Helena's recipes. As the days went by, the number of orders grew. Marcos's bicycle, which had once seemed like just a means of transportation, now became the vehicle that sustained his family. He felt proud to be able to help at home, and at the same time, he discovered the satisfaction of delivering something that made people happy. While pedaling through the streets, Marcos observed the city around him. The simple houses, the local market, the small park where children played, everything seemed to have an almost magical tranquility. But this calmness hid the fact that for his family, each day was a struggle. "Marcos, be careful with the deliveries. Don't rush too much," his mother always said when he left, worried about her son's health. But Marcos was determined, looking ahead, focused on the task at hand. He knew their effort was necessary to keep the house running. The young delivery man soon became a well-known figure in town. People got used to seeing him pass through the streets, always with a smile on his face and a delivery in hand. His hard-working spirit won the sympathy of everyone, and he started feeling more trusted each day. However, not everyone was happy with the growth of the small business. Marcos began to notice that not everyone looked kindly on his family's success. Some people seemed bothered by the hard work he was doing, as if his family's effort was an uncomfortable reminder that the world wasn't always in balance. "But we will overcome," thought Marcos, as he pedaled to the next delivery. He knew that despite everything, what mattered most was that his family was united and doing the best they could, every day. And at that moment, he was determined to keep helping his parents move forward, unaware that the future held much bigger challenges. The sun was strong that day, and the heat seemed to make the air even heavier. Marcos pedaled faster than usual. The streets were more crowded and deliveries were piling up. The past few weeks had been filled with small successes and challenges, but the boy knew his family was still far from financial stability. However, his determination to help his mother and father didn't fade. As he passed by a tree-lined street, his phone rang. It was a new order. The voice of the client on the other end seemed impatient but polite. "Hi, are you Marcos, the snack delivery guy? I need a delivery to the building on Central Avenue. It's not urgent, but it needs to be fast. Please go up to the 10th floor." Marcos felt a slight tension in the man's voice, but didn't pay much attention. It seemed like just another delivery. However, upon arriving at the building, he noticed the elevator was out of order. What luck, he thought, exhaustion starting to set in his legs. Even so, he decided to press on. It was the job he had to do, and his family depended on it. Climbing 10 flights of stairs wasn't easy, the heat mixed with the growing sense of fatigue. Marcos had already made several deliveries that morning and felt the weight of the pedals in his legs, but he didn't stop. He climbed the steps with the order in hand, trying not to let the feeling of frustration take over. Finally, after much effort, he reached the 10th floor. He knocked on the door of the indicated apartment, and it opened quickly. In front of him stood a middle-aged man, well-dressed, with an indifferent expression, as if nothing was unusual about having a sweaty, panting boy in front of him. "You took too long," said the man with a sharp voice. "I've been waiting." "What were you doing? Riding your bike to work or playing? I bet you should be studying, not working to support your house." Marcos felt a lump in his chest. The man's words were like a punch. He didn't know how to respond. He couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel to a child who was simply trying to help his family. "This isn't work for you, boy. You should be in school, not running around with this snack delivery," the man continued, now with a sarcastic smile on his face. Marcos, speechless, handed over the order but couldn't hide the weight of the humiliation. He didn't have the courage to say anything. Without a tip, without any recognition, he turned around and started descending the stairs again. The feeling of worthlessness grew, as if all his effort had been in vain. But what he didn't expect was what would happen next. When he reached the ground floor and finally left the building, reality hit him like a slap in the face. His bicycle, which had always been by his side, was gone. He looked around, desperate, trying to find any sign of his faithful work companion. But there was nothing, just the emptiness of the street. His bike had been stolen. Marcos froze. Fear and anguish spread throughout his body. Without the bicycle, he couldn't continue making deliveries, and without deliveries, his family would have nothing to eat. Panic took over him, and the tears came without warning. He looked at the building one last time, feeling helpless and lost. This situation seemed like the end of everything. Without the bike, Marcos didn't know what to do. He couldn't go home empty-handed. He tried to calm his heart, but despair wouldn't go away. As he walked back home, the orders started getting cancelled. The clients were growing impatient with the delays, and Marcos's mother, worried, asked several times what had happened. He didn't know what to say. The pain of failing his family was more than he could bear. That night, the house felt quieter than ever. Marcos lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. He felt ashamed and defeated. All he wanted was to turn back time and avoid that moment, but now what remained was a future full of uncertainties. Deep down, he knew that things were about to change in an unexpected way. But at that moment, all he could do was drown in his thoughts and frustration, not knowing that a new opportunity was about to arise. The next morning arrived with a light breeze that refreshed the heavy air of the previous night. Marcos woke up with the feeling that nothing could get worse, but when he looked at his bicycle, the emptiness became even more real. It was gone, and without it, he couldn't fulfill the deliveries, which meant his family's only source of income was compromised. That morning, Marcos's thoughts were dark. He had lost confidence in himself, feeling as if he was failing in his mission to help his parents. His father, Jose, still couldn't work due to his health, and his mother, Helena, had become paler, visibly tired from the situation. The small snack business seemed to be on the brink of collapse. He went out, trying to find a solution, not knowing what to do. The town felt more distant and indifferent. The familiar streets now seemed strange, as if everything he knew had transformed into something impassive. He pedaled through the empty sidewalks, aimlessly, until a gentle voice made him stop. You seem lost, young man. Can I help you? Marcos looked toward the voice and found an elderly woman, her eyes shining with an unusual wisdom. Donna Helena, as she introduced herself, was a woman who seemed to have seen the world pass by her, a lady who emanated a calmness that immediately made Marcos feel at ease. She watched him for a moment, and with a kind smile, she made an invitation. Come to my house, boy. I see you're carrying a heavy burden, and maybe I can help somehow. Without knowing why, Marcos felt she was speaking the truth. He accepted the invitation and followed Donna Helena to a simple house in the city center with a well-kept garden and a welcoming appearance. Inside, the house was decorated with old furniture, but carefully chosen. It was a place that conveyed peace, something Marcos hadn't felt in a while. Now tell me, what's going on? Donna Helena asked while preparing tea. Marcos hesitated, not knowing where to begin. But as he looked into Donna Helena's attentive eyes, something inside him opened. He spoke about his stolen bicycle, the shame of not being able to fulfill his work, and the worry about his family's future. Donna Helena listened carefully, and when he finished, she spoke with a calm but firm voice. I know what it's like to face difficulties, Marcos. In my time, I was a successful businesswoman, but life always finds a way to surprise us, and often the greatest hardships lead us to the best opportunities. You can't let an obstacle like this define who you are. Marcos looked at her, surprised. Donna Helena didn't just seem like an elderly lady. There was strength and a worldview in her that he hadn't expected to find. Don't worry, we'll fix this. I know some people in the city who can help you, but first, we need to change the way you think about business and life. Donna Helena spent the next few minutes explaining to Marcos how he could view his family's situation from a new perspective. She talked about how to turn difficulties into opportunities and how simply sharing his story of perseverance could captivate others. She also mentioned the importance of connecting with people and building a support network. You have an amazing product, Marcos. Your mother's snacks are special. You just need to learn how to share them with others in the right way. Before Marcos left, Donna Helena handed him a business card with the names of some local entrepreneurs who could help him. Study these people. They might be the allies you need to grow. With his mind full of new thoughts and renewed hopes, Marcos thanked the lady. As he left Donna Helena's house, he felt a spark of optimism reignite in his chest. He didn't know yet how it would all unfold, but something inside him had changed. He felt stronger, more prepared to face the obstacles life would throw his way. As he walked back home, Marcos reflected on Donna Helena's words. He felt like he was on the brink of something new, something that could change his life. No longer the lost and defeated boy, but someone who was beginning to understand the true meaning of fighting for his own opportunities. Marcos returned home with a lighter heart, but still with doubts. He knew that, to take the first step, he would need courage. The stolen bicycle was still on his mind, but Donna Helena's words echoed in his ears, reminding him that he shouldn't give up so easily. Turn difficulties into opportunities. He repeated this to himself with each pedal. When he got home, his mother and father were in the kitchen, as usual, preparing what they could for the day. Jose, his father, was sitting at the table, looking tired. Helena, his mother, seemed to be struggling to hide how much the weight of the last few weeks had affected her body and spirit. She looked at Marcos and asked with a smile, but her voice carried concern. "Son, how was work today?" Marcos hesitated for a moment, but decided not to hide the truth. He told his mother about the stolen bike, the humiliation from Mr. Elias, and most importantly, his meeting with Donna Helena. He spoke about the lady's words, about how she believed he could transform his situation, and how she encouraged him to seek help from local business owners. Helena listened attentively without interrupting. When he finished, she hugged him and said, "You've always been strong, my son. We'll find a way to move forward together." Those words were like a balm to Marcos. He knew that, despite all the challenges, his mother had always believed in him. However, he still didn't know how to take the first step to turn her words into concrete actions. The next day, Marcos woke up early and, before even having breakfast, grabbed Dona Helena's card. The address of the local business owners was clearly written, but he felt nervous. How could he, a 12-year-old boy, ask for help from these grown-up business people? And what would he say? Marcos decided he couldn't wait any longer. He took the little money he had, which had been saved up to buy a new bicycle, and went out to find the business owners. During the walk, the town seemed less hostile, more full of possibilities. For the first time, he felt like someone who could change his destiny. When he arrived at the first address, he found a small shop selling local goods. The owner, a man named Antonio, was behind the counter. Marcos approached hesitantly, but when he saw Antonio's welcoming expression, he felt more confident. "Hi, I'm Marcos. I have a story to tell, and maybe you can help me." Antonio smiled and asked him to sit down. Marcos told him about his family's situation, his mother's snack business, and how he wanted to turn it into something bigger. He explained how his bicycle had been stolen and how it had disrupted his work, but also how determined he was not to give up. The man listened patiently until, in the end, he asked a simple question. "Have you thought about partnering with other local businesses, Marcos?" Marcos didn't know how to respond. He hadn't thought about it. The idea of joining forces with other entrepreneurs seemed interesting, but he didn't know where to start. Antonio, noticing his uncertainty, suggested, "You have something good in your hands, but you need to be more strategic. Let's start with something small. I'll help you make a few deliveries for my clients. Let's see if people start talking about your work. If you do it well, more people will want your service. And who knows, maybe you'll be able to buy a new bike with what you earn." Marcos couldn't believe it. He looked at the man, his eyes filled with gratitude, and thanked him sincerely. He knew this was the first step of many, and that his journey was just beginning. In the following days, Marcos began working with other small business owners in the town. He offered to make deliveries. They gained confidence in his work, and little by little, the name of Marcos's family began to spread. He started to feel a strength within himself that he hadn't known, a renewed determination to help his family. Soon, the small delivery network began to take shape. Marcos realized that although there was still much to be done, he was finally on the right path. No longer lost, no longer alone. With each delivery, he felt more that the town began to see him not as just a boy, but as someone with a goal, someone capable of turning what seemed like a crisis into an opportunity. Life, with all its twists and turns, was showing him that he was stronger than ever. Time passed quickly, and Marcos, though still a boy, began to notice significant changes in his life and in his family's life. The small deliveries to local businesses, initially shy, began to multiply, and his mother's snacks started being recognized throughout the town. The other business owners Marcos had connected with gave him support, and what had once been just an attempt to survive was now turning into something with growth potential. Marcos was still using the old bicycle borrowed from a friend, but he knew that each pedal took him closer to something bigger. He and his mother worked tirelessly, but the feeling that they were heading in the right direction was evident. With each day, more customers showed up, and the deliveries became more frequent. The town seemed to be buzzing with the energy of the new business, as if everyone was rooting for Marcos's story. On a cold morning, while Marcos was organizing the orders in his small kitchen, his father, Jose, appeared at the door. He was visibly more animated than he had been in recent times. "Son, you won't believe what happened," said Jose, his eyes shining. Marcos stopped for a moment. "What is it, Dad?" Jose approached and showed him a small newspaper ad. It was an article about the growing local businesses, and among the success stories was that of Marcos and his family. The article highlighted the transformation of a simple snack business into a delivery network that was conquering the town. The piece talked about the quality of the products and the perseverance of the family, especially Marcos, who, at just 12 years old, was standing out in the local business world. Marcos looked at the newspaper in surprise, feeling a wave of pride and relief. This recognition was a sign that things were really changing. The effort was finally being rewarded. But, as in every success story, challenges soon arose. The next day, while making a delivery, Marcos encountered an unexpected obstacle. A new restaurant was opening in town, and with it, a wave of competition. The owner, a woman named Beatrice, seemed determined to dominate the market. She hired a team of delivery drivers and started offering lower prices, directly challenging Marcos's network. "You're just a boy making deliveries. Do you think you can compete with a real business?" Beatrice said dismissively when Marcos made a delivery to her new restaurant. Her words echoed in his mind, trying to undermine his confidence. But Marcos, contrary to what she expected, didn't let it shake him. Instead of feeling down, he used it as fuel to work even harder. He remembered Donna Helena's words, "Turn difficulties into opportunities." Determined not to let the competition bring him down, Marcos began thinking of new ways to make his business even more attractive. He and his mother started creating new snack flavors, more exclusive, something no one in town offered. Marcos, with the help of local business owners, established partnerships with small regional producers to bring fresh, high-quality ingredients. The response was immediate. His loyal customers began to notice the difference, and slowly, the quality of Marcos' products became his biggest competitive advantage. People were willing to pay a little more for something that truly made a difference. Marcos' business began to grow exponentially. He started hiring more people to help with deliveries, and the snack network began to spread to other neighborhoods in the town. The growth was so significant that within a few weeks they were able to invest in a new fleet of bicycles, faster and more comfortable, which increased the service's efficiency. In a month, Marcos's small business, which had started as a survival solution, was already transforming into a successful network. His mother, Helena, felt more energized, and Jose, even with his health limitations, helped in whatever way he could. But with success came increased pressure. Marcos found himself torn between work and school, always trying to balance his responsibilities with his education. He knew his journey was still far from over, but he could already taste the sweet victory. One evening, after a long day of work, Marcos sat alone on a park bench, staring at the stars. He felt stronger, more capable than ever. He knew more obstacles lay ahead, but he was ready to face them. Marcos' journey wasn't just about succeeding in business. It was about the transformation of his own life, about how he, a simple boy, was learning to create a future full of possibilities. It was an ordinary day, but Marcos felt a strange nervousness in his chest. After weeks of hard work and growing success, he was heading to one of his most important deliveries. The order was large, the kind of client he wasn't used to serving, but it was a good opportunity. The location was in a high-class neighborhood of the city, a sector where luxury and ostentation stood out. He felt a mix of excitement and apprehension as he pedaled toward the destination. When he arrived at the building where he was supposed to make the delivery, a sense of discomfort washed over him. The building was imposing, with dark glass windows and an entrance that exuded sophistication. He parked his bike in front of the gate, and as he climbed the stairs, he was greeted by a butler who, with a cold gesture, indicated where the apartment was. "You can go up, but be quick," the butler said impersonally. Marcos didn't know what to expect, but as he ascended the floors, the weight in his legs seemed to increase. The elevator was still out of service, but he couldn't let that affect him. After all, he had already faced much bigger challenges. Upon reaching the 10th floor, what he didn't expect was to see, sitting on the couch, the same man who had humiliated him months ago, Mr. Elias. He was relaxed, holding a glass of whiskey, with his usual expression, arrogant and indifferent. "You again?" Elias said with a disdainful smile. "Still haven't learned that boys like you shouldn't be working, huh?" Marcos, now stronger and more resilient, didn't let Elias's words affect him. He handed over the order with the same politeness and calm he had always shown, but inside he knew he was dealing with someone very different now. He was no longer the boy Elias had mocked months ago. He was growing, and that was evident. "Here's the order, Mr. Elias. I hope it's to your liking," said Marcos, not showing any weakness. Elias looked at him with an air of superiority, not even getting up to take the food. "You're the same boy who wasted my time. You have the nerve to show up here and still ask for respect? Leave before I call security." Marcos felt a bit shaken, but Mr. Elias's reaction was exactly what he needed. It was a test. He knew he couldn't give in to the insult, not now. With resolve, he turned around and left through the door, feeling that something inside him was changing. As he descended the stairs, his mind was in turmoil. He couldn't believe what he had just experienced. Mr. Elias still seemed to be the same cruel and arrogant man as before, but something inside Marcos had transformed. He knew that the power was no longer in Elias's hands, but in his own. He had a thriving business, a family that depended on him, and most importantly, he had control over his own destiny. When he reached the ground floor, something unexpected happened. Marcos stopped abruptly. His bicycle, the only thing of real value he had, was no longer there. He looked around, desperate. The minutes seemed to drag, and he began running down the sidewalk, searching every corner, asking pedestrians. But the bicycle was nowhere to be found. It had been stolen again. It was a hard blow. What he feared most had happened, but something inside Marcos stopped him from falling apart. He sat on a bench in the square and took a deep breath. The frustration, fear, and anger bubbled inside him, but he knew he couldn't let it defeat him. He had overcome much greater obstacles. Losing the bike wasn't the end. "I will rise above this," he thought. That's when the phone rang. It was Dona Helena with her calm and wise voice. "Marcos, what happened? You seem worried." He told her about the theft, and as always, Dona Helena didn't let him get shaken. "Marcos, life is full of ups and downs. This is just another obstacle, but you have something that no one can take away from you, your determination. Keep your head up and move forward. The bicycle will come back to you, but what truly matters is what you do from now on." Dona Helena's words once again were like a guiding light. Marcos stood up from the bench with a new perspective. He still didn't know how he would do it, but he knew he would find a way. He had been through so much and he was still standing. The truth was, he was about to take a bigger step in his journey. The challenge of recovering his bicycle and the confrontation with Mr. Elias were just the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Marcos now had more than ever the certainty that in the end, he was the one who truly controlled his story. The night was long for Marcos. The absence of the bike weighed like a burden, and he could barely sleep, thinking about everything he had achieved so far and how that theft could ruin everything. He knew that without the bicycle, his delivery business was at risk. The new fleet was still far from being a reality, and the workdays would become much harder. The next morning, Marcos woke up early. his face marked by lack of sleep, but his mind sharp. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't let the theft dictate the direction of his story. The city seemed darker today, as if it too felt the weight of that setback. He headed to the local police station, where he was attended to by a middle-aged officer who seemed more interested in his coffee than solving the case. "Another kid with a stolen bike. What else can I do?" the officer said while filling out paperwork. Marcos felt frustration rise in his chest. There was no support there as he had hoped. Discouraged, he left the police station and decided to walk through the neighborhoods, searching for clues. He knew that in a place like this, news spread fast. While talking to some locals, something interesting came up. An older boy with a mischievous look revealed that he had seen a bike identical to Marcos's being taken to a nearby storage facility, where some people rented bikes for deliveries. With his heart racing, Marcos thanked him and went to the indicated location. The storage facility was hidden in a corner of the town, on a deserted street. He didn't know what to expect, but the feeling that his bike was there gave him the strength to continue. When he arrived, he saw a series of bicycles leaned against a wall, some old, others new. The smell of rusted metal and the dust in the air were a reminder that he was in unfamiliar territory. He took a deep breath and entered the storage facility, trying to stay calm. He looked carefully until, in a secluded corner, he saw the bike. His bike, the old friend that he so desperately needed, was there, but it was far from simple. It was in poor condition, covered with scratches and dirt, but still, it was his bike. "Hey, what are you doing here?" A male voice sounded behind him. Marcos quickly turned around and saw a tall man with a no-nonsense expression approaching. It was the owner of the storage, who looked at him with suspicion. "This bike isn't yours. Leave before I call security." Marcos was speechless for a moment. What to do? What to say? He couldn't just leave the bike there. Determined, he spoke firmly but calmly. "This bike is mine. I was robbed, and I have the right to recover it. If you don't return it, I'll call the police. Or better yet, maybe I'll find witnesses who can prove you're renting out stolen bikes." The man stared at him, evaluating the seriousness in Marcos's eyes. The tension in the air was palpable, but after a few seconds that felt like hours, the man stepped aside and gestured for Marcos to take the bike. "Go ahead, take your bike. But know this, if you start telling stories around here, you'll be the one who regrets it," the man said before turning his back and walking away. Marcos took the bike, feeling the adrenaline surge through his veins. He couldn't believe what had just happened. He was finally recovering what he had lost. The bike was dirty and worn, but it was his, and he would make it shine again. The feeling of victory swelled in his chest, warming him like the sun rising after a long night. As he pedaled back home, Marcos reflected on how significant that moment had been for his journey. Not just because he had gotten his bike back, but because he had faced adversity with courage. He knew that life wasn't made up of just easy victories. It was the challenges and obstacles that made success even more meaningful. He was no longer the boy he once was, but a young man who had risen again. When he got home, his mother was at the door, waiting for him anxiously. When Marcos saw her, he didn't need to say anything. She could read in his eyes that he had recovered the bike. The relief was immediate, but what moved her most was seeing how much stronger and more mature her son had become. He had been through so much, and there he was, back with his bike and with a renewed purpose. "You did what you had to do, son. I'm proud of you," Helena said, her eyes filled with emotion. But for Marcos, what really mattered wasn't just the bike. It was the fact that he had overcome yet another battle. He knew that, alongside his family and with the help of the people who had crossed his path, he could continue to build his empire, one piece at a time. The next morning brought a sense of renewal for Marcos. With the bike restored, he could resume the deliveries, and the routine no longer felt so heavy. He felt like he was on the right path, but the sense that something more needed to be done still lingered in his mind. Something bigger, something that would give him the final push. That's when he remembered Donna Helena. The meeting with her weeks ago had been a turning point in his life, and since then he hadn't sought her out. Donna Helena had been a source of wisdom and hope, someone who had helped him see beyond immediate obstacles and understand the value of opportunities. He grabbed his bike and decided to visit her that morning, hoping she had something else to share, something that would help him expand his horizons. Donna Helena lived in a simple but cozy house in the city center near a quiet square. The house, surrounded by plants and trees, had an aura of tranquility that always welcomed Marcos, and he knew that there he would find the answers he was looking for. When he arrived, Donna Helena greeted him with her warm smile, as if she knew exactly what he needed. "Marcos, you came at the right time. Sit down, let's talk." He settled into a wooden chair in the garden, where the fresh air and the sound of birds created a perfect environment for reflection. Donna Helena sat beside him and with a keen gaze asked, "So, my boy, how has your journey been? I see that your determination is stronger, but there's something in your eyes that tells me there's more behind all this will." Marcos was silent for a moment, reflecting on what he really wanted. "I want more, Donna Helena. I don't just want to survive, I want to thrive. I want my family to have a better life, and for everyone to see the value in what I'm doing. I don't know how, but I feel there's more I can learn to transform all of this." Donna Helena looked at him with affection. "Marcos, you've already done more than many would do in an entire lifetime. But the thing is, it's not enough to want. It's about learning to see the opportunities. I knew from the start that you had something special, and now it's time to use that courage to build something bigger." She then began to tell him more about her own story, something he had never known. Donna Helena wasn't just a wise woman. She had been a successful businesswoman in the past, someone who had built her own empire. She told him about the challenges, the losses, and the victories she had experienced, and how, in moments of difficulty, she had been able to turn every problem into a chance for growth. "I learned over the years that the real key to success is not how much you know, but your ability to adapt and use circumstances to your advantage. When others see an obstacle, you need to see an opportunity." Donna Helena's words echoed in Marcos's mind. He had already learned how to fight against difficulties, but now he understood that he needed to be more insightful, to use his story as a foundation for his business. She offered him something he hadn't expected, the chance to learn from her, to grow under her guidance. Donna Helena introduced him to several local business owners, people he had never imagined getting close to. They were small business owners, but with an impressive business vision. They shared their strategies, discussed their challenges, and most importantly, saw Marcos as someone with potential to grow. "You already have the foundation, Marcos. Now you need to expand your vision. The town is full of people who need your service, but you need to learn how to connect with them. It's not just about selling snacks, it's about understanding what they truly want." What followed in the weeks ahead was an immersion into the world of business. Marcos met with Donna Helena's new allies, learning the value of a good marketing strategy, how to keep customers loyal, and how to use social media to expand his business. He applied everything with determination, and soon his name spread throughout the city, attracting more customers. Marcos's confidence grew day by day. He felt that what was once a distant dream was becoming a tangible reality. His family, which had once lived with so many difficulties, was now beginning to see the possibilities of a more comfortable life. But most importantly, he felt that he was in control of his future, and that was something he had never imagined he would have. But deep down, he knew the journey was far from over. He would still face many challenges, and his story was far from being finished. But now he knew that the path to success was not linear. It was made of moments of struggle, but also of learning and overcoming, and he was more than ready to move forward. Marcos's days were becoming more and more hectic. The small snack network he had started building was already growing impressively. Deliveries were multiplying, and he now had more orders than he had ever imagined. Donna Helena, with her wisdom, had taught him how to connect with customers in a unique way. Marcos knew he was doing more than just delivering food. He was delivering trust, empathy, and a piece of his story with each order. His bike was now equipped with stickers and logos of the new business name, Sabor da Cidade. The deliveries were no longer just a means of survival. They were the gateway to something bigger. He began to worry about the details, the packaging, the speed of deliveries, the smile on each customer's face. But something in his heart still pushed him to seek more. He wanted more than just a successful snack network. He wanted his story to impact the city, for everyone to know his journey of overcoming. It was then that one day, while he was in the city center, he encountered an unexpected situation. In front of a luxury store, he saw a familiar figure. It was Mr. Elias, the man who had humiliated him weeks before, the arrogant millionaire who, without a doubt, never imagined that the delivery boy could become something relevant. Marcos stood still for a moment, observing Mr. Elias with a sardonic smile on his face. He looked as imposing as before, with his impeccable suit and superior gaze. But for Marcos, it no longer had the same effect. The humiliation from before seemed distant, as if he were a different person. Destiny seemed to want to offer a reunion opportunity. Elias spotted him and with a sarcastic smile said, "Well, if it isn't the little delivery boy, I thought you would have given up or, who knows, continued to live your insignificant life as before." Marcos took a deep breath, feeling Elias's words still reverberating in the air. But this time, he didn't feel anger or fear. He knew he had something bigger to show. With a calm smile, he replied, "I'm not the boy you knew anymore. I'm building something that has more value than you imagine." Elias laughed, a cold, indifferent laugh. "You really think you'll ever be anything more than a simple delivery boy? You're just a boy trying to imitate big businessmen, but without the slightest idea of what it really takes to succeed." But Marcos, without losing his composure, stepped a little closer. "Maybe you're right about one thing, Elias. I'm just a boy. But you know what's interesting? I've already built more than you'd imagine, and you haven't even noticed. I'm creating something that is respected by my city, and one day you'll see that, not as a delivery boy, but as a businessman." Elias looked at him with a look of contempt, but there was something in his gaze that showed he was beginning to realize that maybe Marcos wasn't someone who could be ignored anymore. The confrontation was brief, but significant. Marcos felt he was leaving the shadows of the past behind. He was no longer the submissive boy who accepted humiliation. He was growing, and Elias's words, instead of hurting him, only made him stronger. In the days that followed, Sabor da Cidade continued to thrive. Marcos and his family had managed to open new branches, and the business was spreading to other neighborhoods. They had become known not only for the flavor of the snacks, but for the story of overcoming that was woven into every delivery. Marcos now saw himself as an example of resilience for many. He was no longer just the delivery boy. He was a businessman, and his journey inspired others to believe in their own possibilities. But what he didn't know yet was that fate had one more big surprise in store for him. Donna Helena, always attentive to what was happening around her, sought him out one afternoon with an enigmatic smile on her face. "Marcos, it's time to take the next step. I think you already know what to do." Marcos looked at her, confused. She, however, already knew what he needed to do. Donna Helena introduced him to a group of local investors, people who believed in the potential of his business and were willing to finance its expansion. Donna Helena's help was crucial for him to finally turn Sabor da Cidade into a large snack network with multiple branches spread across the city. Marcos's name was now everywhere, and he had become an example of success, not only in financial terms, but also in character and determination. Sabor da Cidade was now one of the largest snack chains in the city. Marcos could hardly believe what he had accomplished. What had started as a simple attempt to help his parents survive had transformed into a local empire, respected and admired by all. He had more units, more delivery drivers, and a loyal customer base. His story of overcoming had spread, and he had become a figure admired by the community. Still, Marcos felt that something was about to happen, something that would bring closure to everything he had experienced so far. He knew his journey was far from over, but something in his heart told him the cycle was nearly complete. One day, while walking through the city center, he encountered an unexpected scene. On the sidewalk, standing in front of the old building where he had made his last delivery to Mr. Elias, he saw Elias himself. The man was there alone, watching the city's movement with a tired, distant expression. Marcos hesitated for a moment, but then decided to approach. He knew that this moment, so long awaited, had finally arrived. "Mr. Elias," Marcos said, his voice firm and controlled. "Long time no see." Elias turned, surprised to see the boy, now a young man, standing in front of him. He took a few seconds to recognize Marcos, and when he did, his expression changed. The arrogance from before was no longer there. You're doing well?" he asked with a tone that wasn't the same as before. It was something humbler, perhaps even ashamed. Marcos smiled with no trace of anger or bitterness. "Yes, I'm great. And you? How have you been?" Elias sighed, his gaze now more introspective. "Not as well as you, from what I can see. I never imagined you would get this far. When we met last, I thought you were just another boy trying to fit into a world that wasn't yours. But now, you have something I never had, Marcos. And maybe that's what frustrates me the most." Marcos, now more mature and confident, looked at the man with a serenity he never imagined having. "What you didn't understand, Elias, is that I never needed to be like you to succeed. I found my own path, with a lot of effort, and it wasn't money that motivated me. It was the will to help my family and the city that saw me grow. Now, I am the master of my own destiny." The silence that followed was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Elias seemed to reflect deeply on Marcos's words. The young businessman stood before him, not as the tired boy from before, but as a strong man who had earned the respect of everyone, even someone like him. "You're right," Elias finally said with a sigh of resignation. "I spent my whole life seeking more and more, but maybe I've forgotten what really matters. I've seen what you've done, Marcos, and in a way, you've taught me something. Congratulations, boy. You made it." Marcos smiled, but his smile was different. It wasn't one of revenge, but one of understanding. He knew that the encounter with Elias didn't need to be about winning or losing. He had already won in a much more important way than Elias had ever imagined. "Thank you, Elias. I hope one day you find what you're looking for too. For me, it's already clear. Success isn't just about what you achieve, but the impact you leave on the people around you." Elias, for a moment, looked at Marcos with newfound respect. He extended his hand, an attempt at recognition. Marcos shook his hand firmly, without hesitation, knowing that the gesture symbolized not just a personal victory, but the realization that his journey had truly transformed his life forever. As Marcos walked away, he felt a lightness in his heart. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. His journey was complete, but he knew it had only just begun. The future lay ahead, and he was more than ready to continue his mission. Marcos's story, the boy who started with a bicycle and a dream, was now a legacy, an example of perseverance, courage, and above all, resilience. He had become a symbol that, with hard work and a clear vision, anyone could change the course of their life. So everyone, what did you think of Marcos's journey? It's amazing how he went from a simple delivery boy to a true businessman, right? His story is proof that perseverance, empathy, and hard work can truly transform someone's life. He had to overcome many obstacles, including the humiliations from people like Mr. Elias, but in the end, he proved that success comes from believing in yourself and your ideas. Now, I want to know from you, what moment in Marcos's story inspired you the most? Was it his perseverance in facing Mr. Elias, the unexpected support from Donna Helena, or how he turned a difficulty into a big opportunity? Leave your comment below, because we love hearing your thoughts. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the story, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates, and activate the bell to receive notifications whenever we post new videos here. Your interaction is super important to us and helps us continue bringing inspiring and motivating content. After all, as we saw with Marcos, sometimes just one action can change the course of an entire story. Let's keep moving forward on this journey of learning and growth. See you in the next video. Next.